Okay, well, I hope everybody can see my face. My name is Joe Natoli. Throughout the course of this, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself, so I won't bore you right now with the introduction. I will tell you that for the last 30 years of my life, I've been a user experience consultant, companies of all shapes and sizes, mostly large enterprise organizations. I teach online classes. I've written a couple books, and I also teach part-time at university. What I'm going to talk about today is dealing with imposter syndrome. And I don't want to give too much away about that, but I will tell you that I don't think I've ever met anybody in this profession, or as you'll hear about in other professions, who aren't struggling with that in some degree. Okay, so if we're going to talk about your career as a UXer or a designer or anything that's even remotely related, it doesn't even matter necessarily what your career choice is. What I always tell people is that of all the challenges you're going to face throughout your career, and you will face many, the only one that really has the power to stop you is you. Okay? So as I set that up, and like I said, I don't want to say too much. I'm gonna go ahead and get into the presentation. I'm gonna share my screen, and then obviously we'll have time for questions later. And at the very end of the presentation, I have a few things I would like to give to you as gifts. So we'll get to that. All right, I'm going to share the screen, and then okay, you should be seeing a picture of David Bowie on your screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Wonderful. I want to start with this. I think most of you know who this person is. I mean, David Bowie is probably one of the most famous musicians who has ever lived. He's one of the most relentlessly creative, reinventive personas that have ever existed in public life. He has an incredible volume of work over an incredible number of years. And he was just relentlessly creative and innovative and groundbreaking. What he had to say at one point, and I've heard him echo this several times in several different interviews, but this one in particular stuck out with me. He said, I had enormous self-image problems and very low self-esteem, which I hid behind obsessive writing and performance. I was driven to get through life very quickly. I really felt so utterly inadequate, and I thought the work was the only thing of value. I want you to think about this for a second, okay? This is David Bowie telling you that he had very low self-esteem, that he felt inadequate, that he felt like he wasn't good enough, right? And part of the drive to create was to prove to himself that he was good enough. Okay, this is important because it's going to be a theme in everything that we talk about. 70% of us suffer from imposter syndrome, which is defined as the fear and feeling of being a fraud. And one of the best sources and the best studies that's ever been done on this comes from the Journal of Behavioral Science. It was a piece called The Imposter Phenomenon. Okay, so 70% of us, that's the majority. The other 30% are, I don't know, sociopaths, psychopaths, people who have no sense of, anybody's anything. But this is widespread. So if you are ever feeling that you're not good enough, if you constantly obsess over your skills and your talents, I need you to understand that you are not alone. This is me. This was in the Czech Republic last year. I routinely do this, okay? I get up on big stages like this for packed rooms full of people. At this particular event, there were probably, I don't know, 500 or 600 people in this room. I don't really know what the capacity was, but it was a huge old theater. And people were packed on the floor, on the seats in the floor, on the 3 levels of balconies. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I show it to you for a reason. I got 30 years helping global organizations, big companies, names you would absolutely know, helping them improve product design and user experience. Okay, these people seek me out and they say, hey, we need help. I ran my own firm for 10 years and I sold it in 2007. I give keynotes and lectures across the globe every year, except for last year when we had a pandemic. I have more than 200,000 online students at this point, thousands of followers around the world. I've become somewhat of a household name in UX, where people sort of seek me out all the time. I get email, I get direct messages daily on social media and everywhere else filled with praise from students, from people I've helped. Okay, every single day of my life. So these are all really great things, right? I am unbelievably fortunate and successful by every, definition of the term. And yet I struggle every single day with imposter syndrome. Okay? I've been wrestling with imposter syndrome my entire life, since I was old enough to be conscious of having artistic talent. And I'm 52 years old. Okay, so that's at least 46 years of my life. I have always had great difficulty internalizing and accepting my self-worth and my success. I've always been exceedingly hard on myself. And as I said at the outset, right, despite all that, I mean, every single day of my life, people say the most kind things imaginable to me. 10 minutes ago, I got a message with somebody who read something, a book that I wrote, and again, said wonderful, wonderful things. This happens to me a lot. People share in great detail how I've helped them or what they were able to accomplish with my guidance or my advice, how much it meant to them, how they couldn't have done it without me. Now, again, this literally happens every day, all day in some cases. Emails, DMs, social medias, public testimonials, etc. Now, you would think that would absolutely erase any self-doubt I have for good, right? But it doesn't. Nothing is ever good enough for that imposter's voice. It tells me nearly every day that I'm completely full of it, okay? That people will eventually find out that I don't really know what I'm doing. It tells me I don't really know what I'm talking about. It tells me my accomplishments are just the result of blind luck instead of ability. And I often think to myself that if I ever spoke to another human being the way I sometimes speak to myself, I'd probably be the most hated person on the planet, okay? And I want you to think about that for a second. Think about the things that you say to yourself in your head, and then ask yourself, would I ever say this out loud to another person? If you wouldn't, then why do you say it to yourself? So all of this is in line with the vast majority of research on this topic, okay? And that is that imposter syndrome hits good, kind-hearted, and successful people, high achievers, the hardest. The truth I will tell you is this: the more you achieve, the louder that voice gets. But while that may sound like bad news, it isn't, okay? And that's because I am living proof that there's a way to put this thing in its place, to deal with it, to transcend it, to succeed despite it. What I want you to understand is that I don't possess any unique or special knowledge or power or talent that enabled me to do that. I simply adopted a number of rules and techniques that allowed me to have the kind of life and career that I wanted. So if I did it, there is no doubt in my mind that you can too, okay? Deal with it, to transcend it, to succeed despite it. This is not about getting rid of that voice, because that's not possible, okay? It's about putting it in its place. It's about dealing with it and moving forward anyway. So what I'm going to give you are some rules to deal with that. But before I do that, one of the best definitions I've ever heard of this is that the roots of imposter syndrome come from perfectionism, okay? The need to be perfect. Now, someone described this to me once as the fear of failure couched in procrastination, right? In other words, when we put things off, when we avoid doing things, when we procrastinate, there's a reason. It's because you're sort of afraid of doing the thing. And the associated stress from that fear distorts your perspective of yourself, of your accomplishments. Now, user experience design, or design of any kind, or information architecture work of any kind, as disciplines, these are all about reaching some kind of ideal state, right? So we're all perfectionists. I've never met anyone in this industry who wasn't a perfectionist, all right? So it stands to reason that those of us who practice carry a very strong streak of perfectionism in our genes. And the more you care about what you do, the bigger and wider and deeper that streak is. And on that note, before I get into the rules here, I want to share something else. I do not for a minute believe in this idea of separation between your work life and your personal life. People say, the cliche of, well, it's not personal, it's business. That's bullshit to me, okay? It's just incorrect. Like I said a minute ago, in order to be good at what you do, you have to care about it. And that care is the core of what makes you good at it in the first place. So in that respect, everything you do absolutely is personal, and that's okay. All right? That's as it should be. That said, what I'd like to do is share the 5 rules that I follow every single day for combating imposter syndrome, for putting it in its proper place so that I can be my best self personally and professionally. And if you follow these things, I can promise you it will do the same for you. Okay, this isn't magic, it's habit and practice. That said, let's get into these. Rule number 1, your job is not to know, it's to find out. No matter what you do, okay, no matter what your job role is, you do not have to be the smartest person in the room, no matter what that imposter voice tells you. Okay, don't get yourself locked into the idea that you have to know at every point in a project exactly what needs to be investigated, exactly what your requirements are or should be, exactly what will result in the best IA or UX or design, or exactly how something, should be improved. You can't, you don't, you shouldn't be expected to. Okay, you don't miraculously have some magic intrinsic knowledge and know everything. Neither do I. All right, we get all that information by investigating, by researching, by willingness to try things, and a willingness to be wrong about them, a willingness to learn from the results. And this, contrary to what you may believe, is the foundation of a successful career. People like 2 of my friends, for example, who are in IA, Peter Morville and George Arango, guys who have literally written the book on information architecture, are both relentlessly curious human beings. They operate from a place of curiosity, right? From always wanting to know and learn more, which frees them from the burden of feeling like they have to know everything because they're the quote unquote experts. All right, you're not the smartest person in the room. You don't have to be. I spend a lot of time talking to individuals and product teams about how to work, how to collaborate effectively with other people. How you leverage everybody's individual talents and subject matter expertise. Why? Because you're 1,000 times stronger with their contribution. No matter how good you are, you'll never know as much about what they do every day and why they do it and how it benefits the business as they do. So I want you to silence that voice in your head that says you have to be the one to lead every charge, turn over every stone, find every answer. That's not only impossible, it's counterproductive. When you follow the road of knowing and doing everything, you'll never do the proper amount of digging to figure out what the right problems to solve are. You'll miss the stuff that matters most, okay? So learn to collaborate instead. Put all the brain power in the room and in the building to work. Be patient, be flexible, and remember that there is always more than one right way to do something. It's your job to investigate and find it. Rule number 2, listen instead of talking. Moments of silence are when that imposter's voice pipes up. That's when it starts screaming for attention. That's when it starts pushing you to fill that empty space with your own voice before it's too late and everyone realizes you don't know what to say or what the answer to that question is, or. Okay, you think I know. I think you know what I'm describing here. It's the need to prove your worth at every conceivable opportunity, right? To prove that you know what you're doing, to prove that you know what you're talking about. But while your mouth is working to convince everyone in the room of your knowledge and your expertise and your legitimacy, you're not paying attention to the situation at hand. You're not paying attention to what the real issue is or what really needs to be done. You know why? Because you're not listening. And in doing that, you're giving the imposter exactly what he wants. And I characterize mine as male. That's something that I recognize in myself. Okay, it's something that I consciously, actively work to counteract. I tell myself in my head, and I say this out loud sometimes if I'm by myself. I'm on a call like this one. I try to check that tendency to want to preach and say, well, wait a minute, be quiet, listen. Listen more than you talk. And just about everything and anything that I do, I take a ton of notes. I record things so I can listen to it later because I want to know what people are actually saying. And in some cases, you have to read between the lines of what's really happening here and then ask more questions. You can't do that if you're not fully listening and fully focused and paying attention to what people are telling you. Rule number 3, be willing to be wrong and be happy to be wrong, as crazy as that may sound to you. I am a firm believer in what Buddhism refers to as the practice of beginner's mind. Okay. Shunryu Suzuki wrote a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and it starts with this sentence. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. What you're looking at here is taped to the top left corner of my drawing table, which is what I use as a desk. This is Suzuki's calligraphy for beginner's mind. I keep it there to remind myself that I don't know everything. I don't have to know everything, and I shouldn't want to know everything. Why? Because learning, continuous growth and improvement is a core component of being good at what you do. Remaining open to possibilities, being willing to investigate them, especially when they challenge what I think I know. That's how I remain useful. That's how I remain valuable to the people I'm trying to help. My friend Doug Collins said to me once that one of the best things you can do in your work is get comfortable with the phrase, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. For example, I found that the more questions I asked in a prospecting stage when clients are thinking about hiring me, if I treat every one of those conversations like a working session, and I assume that we don't have any answers, and we're collectively working to figure out what's really going on here, the more successful I became. The better clients I landed, the more long-term work I got, the less I had to worry about money, quite frankly. A very long list of very positive, powerful, meaningful things that enriched my life and my work came directly from moving myself out of the way and being willing to be wrong, being willing to learn. And when you're young, and I started, when I was young, you're arrogant by default, right? It's kind of like a built-in feature. You think you know everything until you get older and slowly realize that you actually don't know anything. But that need to assert yourself and say, no, look, I know what's going on here. I'm the expert in the room. That comes from fear, in my opinion. That ego overload comes from fear that you don't know everything, from the pressure of believing that you have to have all the answers. So you're overcompensating, okay, to convince everybody that you know what you're doing. In your day-to-day work, you'll be constantly asked for things or to weigh in on things or propose solutions to things where you don't know enough about the issue or the solution in the first place, and you'll be very tempted to give an answer. In job interviews are the same way. I talk to students who are looking for jobs or folks in the industry who are looking for jobs about this all the time. When you're being tested, okay, and you're given a design challenge or you're having a conversation, the interviewer says, well, what would you do in this situation? And they're asking you something that you have no experience with, right? You don't know the client, you don't know the product, you don't know the scenario, you don't know the situation. So the best thing to do a lot of times is just to say, look, we've only been talking for 3 minutes. I don't know nearly enough to give you an opinion on that. I really need to learn more first, so I'm not just guessing. And that guessing isn't going to be helpful to either one of us. I firmly believe in that being the right answer, okay? Because it's the truth in a lot of cases. It's the same with prospective clients for me. It's the same with people inside your organization, on your own team, someone in management who's asking you, how are we going to do this, 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 and this? If your honest answer is, I don't know yet, then that's what you say. What I know from 3 decades of doing this work and my 52 years on this earth is that giving any other answer will paint you into a corner very, very quickly. Okay? Because people will take what you said in that moment as a truth that you are now responsible for. Joe said we should go do this, and he said it's going to work. That's who you are now from that point forward. So you have to find the courage to admit that you don't know, and you have to keep telling yourself that it's okay not to know. And you keep telling yourself that until you believe it, as often and as many times as necessary. Rule number 4, practice resilience. I don't know if any of you have seen the Rocky movies with Sylvester Stallone, but I have. I've seen them all many times, and I love them, as cheesy and as cliched as they are. Why? Because it's all about getting up for the 10,000th time when you've been knocked to the floor, right? When life hits you hard, which it will. I love that. I'm a sucker for that message because I think being resilient, being able to get up, is terribly important to your success. I told you at the start of this how people offer praise and kindness to me almost every day, right? Well, the opposite happens every day as well because I'm a public figure, so to speak. The minute you do anything in public and the minute you have a good number of people paying attention to it, you paint a target on your back. These bitter people, angry people come out of the woodwork to tell you that you're full of it, you're a fake, you're stupid, you have no talent. And lots of other things that I'm not going to mention here, okay? I get that every day as well. And you can never figure out what it was that you did to these people to make them hate you so much, and you never will. Because it's not about you, it's about them. These are their issues, their problems, and they're just looking to direct their anger and frustration somewhere. And it can absolutely sink your ship if you let it. As such, the most important character trait you can have in your life and your work is resilience, the ability to bounce back, to come back. Because believe me, in your career, in life, in every aspect of everything you do, you're going to get knocked down. That's not an if, that's a when. You are going to have stuff come at you that you're not ready for. You're going to have things that are going to take the wind out of your sails. It's the natural order of things, okay? We don't always get what we deserve, and sometimes we get things that hurt. In any number of ways, large and small, you have to accept that as reality. But you also have to realize that it does not ever have to stop you. As long as I've been doing this, the only thing that has ever had the potential to stop me is me, as I said at the outset. That's the truth, which means that the only thing that's ever going to stop you is you. I promise you. Like everybody, I've been through some tough stuff as well, personally and professionally. It's all about you and how you deal with it. You have to keep getting up no matter how many times life takes you to the floor. You have to keep going, and a big part of that means remaining calm. One of my mantras is calm in the face of every storm. No matter what's happening around you, you stay neutral, you stay focused. Let's say you're having a conversation with someone, a boss or a stakeholder, and they're getting heated, right? They're getting angry because they're frustrated. And they don't understand why any of this gold-plated UX stuff really matters, or, we don't need to spend any time on that. It's irrelevant. You got to take that, you got to let it hit you, and you got to let it bounce off of you. You force yourself in that moment to stay calm, not react. Okay? You think, okay, what can I do here? What does this person really need? What can I say to them that's going to communicate in a way that they're going to understand me? And when you do speak, you keep your voice even and low. No matter what it is that you're saying, you keep your voice in a neutral tone, just like I'm talking right now. That's resilience. Doing all those things together fights and stops the overwhelm that wants to rise up in you and keep coming back in those moments. You also have to realize that panic is 100% biology, okay? Your brain, your amygdala literally thinks you're under attack. Everything in your body and your mind is responding appropriately. Okay, let's go. And it's the fight or flight syndrome that you hear so much about. It's instinctual, it's reflexive, it's not rational. So you have to consciously work to counteract that. And resilience is not something you magically adopt, by the way. It comes from practice. It comes from trying and forcing yourself to get up again hundreds of times in many cases. The more you try, the easier it gets, the more natural it feels. As I said, I've had some very difficult, very painful things thrown my way throughout my life, believe me. So I am living proof that you can and will come back from everything that comes your way. You can, I promise you. Fifth, and finally, you have to put the imposter in its place. And the way you do that is by accepting it and letting go of the idea that you have to be fearless. No matter who you are or where you come from or what your job is, I know this to be true. You have to let go of this idea that you have to be fearless. There's no such thing. You're never going to be 100% confident. The planets are not going to align for you where you're suddenly going to feel like, okay, now's the right time when I get to do my thing and I'll have all the confidence in the world and I'll go get it. There is no such thing as the right time. There is only right now. Over the years, I have had the privilege of meeting people who are ridiculously successful in all kinds of fields. Musicians, actors, writers, people in very high positions with very famous public profiles. You would know all these names, okay, if I gave them to you. And all of them will tell you that at every point where they did something that was really important to their growth or really applauded by others in their career, that they were feeling more fear than they knew what to do with. You have to accept that fear, the imposter syndrome. You have to accept it, live with it, and do the thing anyway. If you're afraid to speak up, you have to ask the question anyway. You have to take the step anyway. You have to take it upon yourself to explore other options, to do a couple hours of research, even if everybody's saying you can't do that. You have to move, okay? You have to step forward. I'm going to leave the last word on this to a friend of mine by the name of Melanie Spring, who is one of the most courageously honest people I know. And she always says, the imposter can be in the car with you, but it has to sit in the passenger seat, and it is absolutely not allowed to put its hands on the wheel. Okay, that's how you deal with this. I want to say one more thing before we get to the end here, because it bears repeating. No one is fearless. Whoever it is that you look up to, whoever it is that you see examples of in public life and you think to yourself, man, that person just goes out there and does their thing and they feel no fear. They just go forward. It's not true. Okay, it's absolutely not true. Most of those people, as I said a second ago, are feeling more fear than they know what to do with. The key to moving forward, the key to succeeding, the key to everything I've talked about today, I can sum up in 2 sentences. Feel the fear and do it anyway. That's all I have for you today, with the exception that there are 2 things I would very much like to tell you about. The first is you are all welcome to a free copy of this book. It's called The Way It Is. It's 10 powerful UX career tips, and these are all things that I learned the hard way by getting my nose broken in any number of ways. So all you have to do is send me a direct message via Twitter at Joe Natoli, and I am happy to send it to you. The second thing is that I have courses and training videos and ebooks and templates and guidebooks and all sorts of things, and I publish new content, new courses, new learning, training every month at ux365academy.com, and I would be honored if you would go and check it out. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I also recommend Joe's courses because I took part in few of them, actually, 2 or 3. And it was very, very interesting, and I learned a lot about UX, especially at the beginning of my road to UX, which was a few years ago, so thank you.
I am honored.
As for imposter syndrome, I know what you are talking about because I have exactly the same problem all the time.
We all do. We all do.
Yeah.
We all do.
So,
it's there. It's there to different degrees in different people.
Yeah. I have it. A lot of issues with it. Anyway, I think that your the way you look at it, the curiosity way, it's very, very interesting way to deal with it, actually.
It changes the way you deal with it. Okay.
Yeah, it changes the angle, right?
Yeah, because for instance, I said this to somebody yesterday, as a matter of fact, when I'm writing, for example, when you get into a topic that you feel like you need more research on, that you need to know more about, if you can go do research in one of 2 ways. Okay, if my mindset when I'm writing is one of frustration, if I feel like why am I talking about that? I don't have enough information. Probably shouldn't be talking about this at all. If I go off and do research with that in my head, the only thing that's going to happen is everything I'm going to see is going to make me more depressed as I go. Yeah. Like, I'm not as good as these people. I don't know as much about it as these people. I shouldn't do this. If I go about that research as, okay, there's obviously some things I feel like I'm missing here. Let me go learn more. I just want to learn more. And that's the only goal. It changes the way that you absorb all that stuff, and it changes your reaction to it and allows you to take it and use it instead of feeling like you're inadequate compared to those people.
Yeah.
Right? It's important.
Yes, when you send me the idea of your presentation, I've read it, and I actually started to thinking about it from that day. And now I am trying to look at things like that. Like, I'm gonna learn more. I don't need to know everything. I can just say I don't know.
That's
and
right.
that actually helped me a lot. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I never thought about it this way. Okay, this is all from me. I would like to ask if anybody have some questions. Please just, turn on your mic and ask.
Yeah, very happy to answer questions.
I'd love to ask a question if that's possible. My name is Camila,
Yes.
and I've been starting my kind of career in UX for the past year. It's been a bit of a rocky road because of Corona, and a lot of companies haven't been wanting to take in interns and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I especially feel a lot of imposter syndrome because I just recently finished my bachelor's in psychology, but I feel like my bachelor's isn't kind of enough for UX, but then I've been doing, a course in graphic design, but I also kind of feel like, okay, well, this isn't as much as a person that's went, to university for design. And then of course there's a lot of, job offers where, it'd be great for you to also program and be, an expert at research and all of this stuff at the same time.
Of course.
So I just kind of wanted to ask, how would you go about feeling resilient in this kind of tough job market and kind of not feel like you're not enough for these, job offers, and feeling like, okay, well then who are these, magic unicorns, these juniors that actually have all of these skills that are theoretically required?
Right. Well, there's a couple of pieces to this. Okay. Number one, those unicorns do not exist. I don't care what those job postings are asking for. I've been doing this a long time. Okay. And I work with companies every single month. Those unicorns do not exist. Companies routinely ask for all this stuff, but the reason all that crazy stuff, that laundry list of stuff shows up in job postings, like you have to be able to do everything and make a really good waffle. Like, okay. The reason all that stuff is in there is usually one of two reasons. Okay. A lot of times the people tasked with creating the job posting know nothing about this profession. Seriously. They're recruiters, they're people in HR, they have no background. So a lot of times what they do is they put together what they think the job title entails, okay? And a lot of times they just steal a job posting from another position. And because everybody does this kind of thing and no one knows what the hell they're talking about, everybody is stealing from very bad, misinformed sources.
And adding something.
Yes. So that's the first part. The second part is a lot of times companies, when they advertise for these positions, they know they need all those things. But again, the people decide, a lot of times, and the people making that decision saying we need somebody, they don't realize that it is exceedingly difficult to get all that in one human being. And what they find out through the job interviewing process and trying to recruit people is that it's damn hard to find. So they often, almost always, hire somebody who has maybe half the skills on that list, okay, at best. That's almost always what happens. They don't ever, in most cases, get exactly what they want. So you have to realize that it's unrealistic and you have to kind of ignore it in that respect, right? You have to ignore all that stuff. Like this whole thing about, designers coding or UXers coding, like we'd be here for a year if we have that conversation. We're not going to. The other part is that, like you, for example, you said, I have a psychology degree and I don't think that's enough for UX. Are you kidding me? It's everything you need for this profession. Everything. You are more positioned, you are better positioned to do this work than most people who have quote unquote UX degrees for a couple reasons. Mainly because at universities and even in boot camps, the education for UX is very tactical. It's very hands-on. If you learn these recipes and learn these processes and learn this software, you'll automatically be able to do this work. And what happens is these folks get out into the world and they're shocked at the degree to which the thinking and understanding of human beings takes precedent over all that. The processes can change, the tools can change, the software can change, it's irrelevant. If you don't understand people and you don't direct your efforts toward understanding people, it's really hard to succeed. Okay, so if you ask me, I think you have everything you need. You have to go forward and you have to push that on your resume, in your portfolio. You have to push that angle of the experience you have in psychology hard. You got to tell that story. Here's why I'm positioned to do this work well, because I understand people. I understand behavior. I understand the motivation behind that behavior. And motivation is what we design for every day.
All right. Thank you very much for your answer.
You're welcome.
It was really helpful, and the presentation was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we have now one question in the chat box. I will read it to you.
Okay.
Is enjoying and admitting today's success wrong by this point of view? If you are happy isn't the goal we had earlier, and why can't we be just happy with the present life? If the present life was the goal, being grabby isn't always the best option.
I'm not quite sure how you got the idea that I don't think you should be happy right now with the things that you've done. I'm in no way am I saying that. You absolutely have to celebrate your successes. All I was speaking to with all those things is that for me and for a lot of people, having all that good stuff happen a lot of times isn't enough. The voice inside your head drowns it out. The voice inside your head prevents you from enjoying it. I think you absolutely should celebrate your successes all the time, every day. I actually keep a file. I didn't talk about this in the presentation, but maybe I should from this point forward. I keep a file of all the testimonials that I've gotten. I keep a file, literally. So it's a text file of all the kind things that people have said to me. All the times they've said, I was at this point in my life, I was struggling with this, and you and I talked about this thing, or I took your course and I learned this, or I read your book and I learned this. And it enabled me to A, B, C, D, and E. I reread that stuff on a daily basis, okay, on purpose, to remind myself that, okay, you're doing good things. You're helping people. It matters, right? What you do every day matters. So to your point, you should absolutely be happy with the work you're doing. You should be happy with the present moment. That's what this is about. Absolutely. And if I in any way suggested otherwise, I apologize.
Yeah, I understand you, and I have same file actually.
It's one of the best things ever. Okay, you have to do that.
As you said, sometimes it's very hard to actually be happy because you always think, okay, maybe I just tricked people into thinking that I'm good and I'm not.
Yeah, and I don't ever feel like I'm doing enough.
Okay, yeah.
To help people, I just don't. It's the way I'm wired.
Okay, so do we have any questions? Please just ask it, turn on your mic and just do it. You can do it in Polish, I can translate.
Remember what I said about asking questions. You cannot be afraid to ask questions.
Sebastian, you can speak. Or not.
Or not. Okay. I saw somebody pop up in participants list.
Yes, I saw it too.
If your mic's not working, use the chat.
We have actually problem with chat, so
I'm sorry. Why... I take it back. Don't listen to me.
We had some problems. Okay, so if anybody wants to ask something, please do. If not, just send me maybe questions via email and I will ask Joe and send it back to you. Oh, Jakub. Jakub has a question. Please turn on your mic and...
Hello.
Hello.
The presentation was very nice, and I started to work on my like everyday task. I'm always like I always like pretend to I'm trying to do more than I should do, I think, and I'm trying to find new ways of raising my abilities. And the question is really, what can I do? Because I know that meditation is like a way to maybe try to raise my abilities and maybe like not give the imposter the voice, that much voice and the hands on the wheel. So if there are any other ways of trying to control the imposter other than meditation? Thank you.
You're very welcome. I mean, meditation is huge. I try to do that once a day, at least twice, if I am disciplined, right? I'll admit to you that I'm very bad at saying, okay, well, I got to take the time to do it, right? But once a day, Definitely. And there is actually, I just started watching this on Netflix. If you have Netflix, and I don't know if it's available in every country, but there's a thing that they just published, a series called Headspace, that is taught by a guy who was a Tibetan monk. And the really short episodes, wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, calming illustration that happens on the screen as he talks. And there's a guided meditation in each one. It's one of the best things I've ever seen, because it's the type of meditation that doesn't demand a whole lot from you. It's very, very simple. It's easy to do. It's very calming. And just the act of watching it and then doing the exercise at the end works wonders. The key to what you're talking about, okay, it's not about doing more to make yourself better, which is how we default as human beings. We go, okay, I need to learn more, so therefore I need to push myself. I need to do more work. Right? I need to cram more stuff into my day so that I'm stretching and expanding and growing. All this stuff you read online about, hustle culture and burn. That's not what works. What works is taking a step back, okay, and giving your mind space to relax, to breathe, to think, because you're actually more productive when you're not carrying all this other stuff at the same time. So you're very much on the right track. Okay, meditation is a huge way to do that. And also when you're the minute you start to feel stuck, right? The minute you start to feel like you're spinning your wheels, the best thing you can do is get up and do something else, even if for a couple minutes. Simply changing your body position, changing what you're doing works wonders. Okay, I'll get up. You can't see it, but I have guitars here in the studio. All right, I get up, I walk 3 feet, and I play guitar for 5 minutes with no particular purpose in mind, right? Other than just to make some noise for a little bit. Or, I have a dog that goes out 3 times a day. So that's sort of a forced break, right? I get up and I go outside and I walk the dog, and it just helps clear your head. So I think you're already on the right track. Okay, it's not about doing more. It's about, in some ways, taking the time to do less so that your mind functions as sharply and as efficiently as it should.
Thank you very much for your answer.
You're welcome.
We checked very quickly, and we have Headspace on Netflix in Poland, so you can all watch it from now
Do
on.
it. It's one of the best things you'll see, I promise you.
Okay. Any more questions? Sebastian? He disappeared again. Sebastian, do you have mic problems? Sebastian is actually a friend of mine, so maybe you can just write to me on Facebook and I will read it.
That's a good idea.
Right? If you have problems.
Fun with technology.
Yes, it's always a problem.
If you think about it, right? It's a miracle. Since all this happened, right? Since everything became remote and online, it is kind of a miracle that all this stuff, whether it's Teams or whether it's Zoom, that it all works every day.
Yes.
When I really think about the volume of people using this, it's just amazing that nothing crashes every 3 minutes. I find that shocking. There are times in this house, because my wife and I both run our own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she's on with a client, I'm on with a client. My daughter is here at school all day, online with Zoom. So we're all using Zoom at the same time in the same house, and it works. That's pretty amazing.
I think he's writing a question, so just a second.
Okay, good. Good. I feel like, the kind of thing that we talked about today is one of those things that I don't think gets talked about enough.
Yeah.
In this profession, we're all very busy with tools and processes and techniques. There's a whole lot to doing this work that is outside those things. It's from things we call soft skills to remaining motivated to what to do in the face of difficulty. What happens when people argue with you at work, when people don't believe the validity or the value of the work you're doing, all sorts of things. And I just feel like that stuff doesn't get talked about enough. It's one of the reasons I started this school in the first place, because I felt like there needed to be a place for things that were sort of outside the typical online UX courses, boot camp training, that kind of thing. A lot of people do the tactical stuff and they do it very well. You know, no one needs me to teach software. You can get that for free for the most part online, just about anywhere, and it's very, very, very good. All right, so the kind of stuff that I talked about today is a lot of what I try to touch, because I think it matters.
Yes, and it's motivational. And thanks to the pandemic, actually, and technology, we can like meet you, because you didn't need to fly to us. So we have a lot of participants from different countries today. And okay, I got the comment. Actually, it's a comment, not a question. So Sebastian wrote me that yesterday he saw a video by you, Joe, on YouTube, and it was called "Am I Too Old for UX?"
Yeah.
And he wanted to say he thanks you very much for this video, because it helped him a lot.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And I'm happy to hear that. I'm extraordinarily happy to hear that. That's a question I get every day. There are two flavors, right? It's either, what am I going to do? I don't have enough experience, right? I'm new, I'm young, no one's going to hire me, or I'm too old, right? And people don't want to hire me because of my age. And I mean, I hate both of those things, right? Because I hate the way that they make these people feel. If you're like on that side, on the am I too old side, here's my thing. If you've been doing something for a long time, I don't care what it is, you have a wealth of knowledge and experience that is valuable. I don't care how you judge your success, okay, or how successful you feel you are or are not. If you've been doing something a long time, okay, if you're my age, like I'm 52, there are people who are older than I am. If you've been doing something a long time, you have learned a lot just by experiencing, okay, just by doing it, by the sheer fact of just being there. I firmly believe that you have to wear that experience like a badge of honor, because that's what it is. All right. You possess something that other people do not have. It's an asset. It's an asset. It's what allows you to be in a room with people, with clients, with teams, and say, okay, folks, I think that I've seen this movie before, and I can sort of tell what the next part of the plot is. I know how this is going to go, not because I'm the smartest person in the room, but because I've experienced this same thing at least 10 times. And it's always worked out like this. There's huge benefit in that, okay, because it prevents you from wasting time and effort going down a lot of paths that probably aren't worth exploring. I think there's huge value in that. And I think that we're not taught explicitly how to talk about those things. You know, the world's biases do not have to be yours. Okay, just because people have some idea about you being too old to do whatever, doesn't mean you have to accept that. I never have. I certainly never have. I still don't necessarily know what I want to be when I grow up.
That's great, actually.
I do what I love. You know, I do what I love, and I go to the next thing and I check it out, and I judge everything by my response. You know, if it's exciting, if it's interesting, if I'm learning, I want to keep doing it. That's all.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it corresponds very well with the topic, with the curiosity topic. So yeah. And Sebastian also is very happy by your response, because he wrote me on Messenger. So he also thank you for all the things that you said. So we have time for one more question if there is somebody who would like to ask it.
Okay, I can ask one question.
Yes, sure, please.
I have worked on one UX project, but it was not really finished. I made some wireframes, but the project was like not really finished because of the team collapse. Let's say that the people were going out of this team. It was a non-profit project. Is it appropriate to give it to the portfolio, or should I make another projects, because now I am working on another project, and then tell about it in my portfolio? What do you think?
I think yes, absolutely. It's work that you did. Okay, it's work that you did. you took it on, you went down the path, you put in the effort, you probably learned a lot of things. If you were able to test that prototype in any way and iterate on it and refine it.
No, it was like that we made a very complex research.
Okay.
And I have made some wireframes about 30 or 50, but it was not the whole project. Yes, it was only a part of it was finished, and then only me and one other person was on this project, and then I went on this project because before there were like 9 people, and most of them went out of this project.
Mm-hmm.
I decided.
So you did the research, right?
Yes, I did. Made a very complex research. Mm-hmm.
It's worth talking about, and here's why it's worth talking about. Not only is the fact that, again, you did the research, you did the work, that automatically to me makes it worth talking about. You should. The other reason it's worth talking about is because portfolios are full of perfect world scenarios, right? Here's all the stuff that went awesome. It went fantastic. The one thing that nobody talks enough about in their portfolio, I'm a big proponent of this, is are the times when things didn't go well. Yeah. All right. The times when things were difficult, the times like this. Okay, we did all this work and then the project evaporated into thin air. Or here's how we did research, we did assumptions, we went forward with this project and we failed. Okay. The end result wasn't what we expected it to be. You talk about that and you talk about what you learned from it. There is no company in the world who hasn't experienced failure internally, especially from the product side, all right, and UX and design and everything else. One of the things that I think if I'm a hiring manager, if I'm a recruiter, if I'm looking for somebody to fill a position, part of what I want to know, if I'm good, okay, if I am good at what I do, if I have a full understanding of the purpose of this organization and its teams, one of the things I'm looking for is I want to know how you deal with adversity. I want to know how you deal with the times when things don't go well, right? When something fails or a project gets abandoned and you feel like I did all this work. I want to know how you dealt with that. Okay, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it. I will bet you that even though you only did research in a wireframe, I'm sure that you learned a couple things along the way. There's no doubt in my mind.
I don't know if it is appropriate to them to give it to the portfolio, because my colleague, the team leader of this project, was working and at the same time studying, and he was not making too many hours working on this project, and I decided to go out of this project. It is continued still, but with another people, because it was very slow progressing. It was like 2 months of almost no outcome.
That's okay. That's okay, because what you learned there is that there's a certain point when effort isn't enough to guarantee a result, right? You're putting in all this effort and it's going nowhere. You have to have the maturity, which it sounds like you do, to say we're spending a lot of effort and we're not making any progress. There is a point when that no longer makes sense to keep doing. Okay. If after 2 months it went nowhere, you did the right thing.
Okay. Yes, I started a new project. Okay.
And you have to talk about it that way. I think you should talk about it that way.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we now have a small delay already, so I would like to thank you very much for accepting my invitation, and thank you for this great presentation today and for answering all our questions, and also for the gifts.
You're welcome. Very welcome.
and for your courses when I have an opportunity now to say thank you once more, because those are really great.
Awesome. I cannot thank you all enough. I am absolutely honored to be here, and I thank everyone for their time and attention today. It means the world.
So yes, thank you, and fight that imposter in you.
Absolutely. Fight on, be resilient, believe in yourself.
Yes, exactly.
You can do it.
Once more, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so our dear people, now we have one more presentation, but I think we will take another 5-minute breaks just to refresh your mind, and we will set up our next guests.